Well, howdy, Internet. It's me, Kevin Christen, with the second speculation and reaction sports cast. Going to vlog now. Ooh, big improvements. Again, I'm really sorry for the low quality of these things. Hopefully, it'll improve over time as I continue into the YouTube journey and things like that. But just want to make sure that there's some content. I want to make sure that my voice is being heard, make sure that you guys know what I'm talking about. Maybe you're interested in what I'm doing. Hopefully, then we can improve from there. But again, for anyone who didn't listen to my first podcast, which was quite frankly not a great first step forward. This is a sports show in which we are only going to be speculating about the future and reacting it instantly to things that have happened. No retrospect, none of that. Maybe it might get interjected from time to time, but none of this analysis, anything. No. We're doing full-blown ESPN nonsense. Only speculating, only doing rapid reactions. Hopefully it'll get me to be a little bold, a little crazy, eat my words from time to time. I'm cool with it. I'm wrong all the time. It happens. I've been watching sports since I was 4. I've been covering it for the last 3 years. Did it all through college. I was on radio. Do you know how many times I've had to admit I was wrong? Tons. It's something that, I'm just used to. It's totally fine. I don't mind making a bold prediction here or there. I'm even happy that it's on record so that I can look like an idiot later. But when I'm right, I'm not going to forget it. So without any further ado, let's move on to our topic today, which is reacting to the NFL Draft's first round, which was yesterday, not a week ago yesterday, which I thought it was. I don't feel bad about that. I'm sorry. I understand that it's not a good thing for a sports personality, as I'm claiming to being, to not know the date of something that is on national television that people really care about in America's biggest sport, which is football. The NFL Draft, the big overblown spectacle. Roger Goodell up there, 3 days of coverage. Mel Kiper Jr., Todd McShay, Matt Millen. But I don't feel bad at all. They overhype it. They overblow it. They talk about it for 6 months. Of course I'm going to forget what day it is. I'm sorry, I just am. It's the nature of the beast. I'm sick of it not being at end of April. I don't even understand why it's at the end of April. It could be at the beginning of April for all we care. It could be 2 weeks after the season. They could move up the combine, get some workouts in, la-di-da, get it out of the way. It's the reason that I love the NBA draft, and it's really the reason why I don't as much like the NFL draft, despite the fact that those two teams, sports, really are unique in the fact that they have the ability that drafts can change your entire team in 1 year. But it's just annoying, and I admitted it. I didn't feel good about it at the time, but in retrospect, I'm living with it. It's fine. So I got the draft day wrong. I could have missed it back in February, honestly. Slogs you down. But regardless, it's happened. It's time to talk about it. And let's start at the top, Jadeveon Clowney. I made the bold prediction that not the bold prediction, but I made the statement yesterday when I was watching the draft that he might be the first kid since Herschel Walker that could have gone straight from high school all the way to the NFL. When he did that, back when he was in high school, he had to go to South Carolina because, colleges, education, all that fun stuff. And he didn't disappoint, did well, had 2 extremely productive seasons and 1 not so productive season because they were throwing about 8 bodies at him every single time, every single play, and allowed for other guys to do pretty well. His measurables were insane. He worked out very well, and he was the number 1 pick in the draft. A lot of guys were saying, kind of leading into the draft, is a defensive guy really worth it? Is he going to change your franchise around? Do they really need him enough? Is he going to lead you to a Super Bowl? Does he warrant a number 1 pick? Yeah, I think he does. He can be a real game changer, especially when you pair him with J.J. Watt. That gives them something that's unique, honestly, in the National Football League, and that's 2 Pro Bowl defensive ends that can play kind of hybrid. Not necessarily hybrid, but they have various talents. I mean, obviously Watt a bit more of a bull rusher, and Clowney's going to move up and down because not only is he strong, but he's humongous, but he's got great moves and quick as the Dickens, essentially. But looking at it, what if they wouldn't have taken him? Honestly, I think that there would have been humongous backlash. The Texas fans would have just killed, essentially, if they didn't. The franchise didn't take him. It was he was the only player in the draft that if you didn't draft him, you're an idiot, and that's why I think it's a really good pick. So we'll move on from that because really, what more is there to say about Jadeveon Clowney? It really just wait for him to play. I think he's a Pro Bowler. I think he's going to be great. I think it's a really smart pick. Moving on to the third pick, the pick that was supposed to lead off this crazy draft because we were already getting something a little out of the ordinary 3 picks in. So of course it was going to go off the rails. Didn't really happen that way, but regardless, we still did get a crazy pick at 3 when Jacksonville took Blake Bortles out of Central Florida. Love the kid. Think he's stellar. True competitor. Wonderful measurables. Tall. Pretty strong arm. Needs to improve that a little bit, but very accurate. Tremendous competitor. Plays with a chip on his shoulder and a leader at that. I think that he's got all the tools to be a really fantastic quarterback in the pros, and I've thought that for a while. On my mock draft, I had him going to Cleveland, where I think that honestly it's probably a better situation for him because I don't think he's necessarily high profile, and I think that that's fine for Jacksonville too. It's not exactly a high profile town. Sorry, Jacksonville. I mean, I live in Dayton, Ohio. Like, there's nothing wrong with not being high profile, but there's some guys who take to that. One in particular that we'll get to, but that's the breaks. As far as the fit, I just said that not necessarily a high-profile guy. Needs some time to develop, I think. I think that while Blake Bortles could step into the limelight and be an NFL starter from day one and likely flourish from it, I don't think he's the kind of guy that you need to sit behind your starter for a couple years in order for him to develop or anything like that. But I'm not sure if Jacksonville's the fit. The fan base is really unenergetic, and if I'm Jacksonville, honestly, the pieces are on defense. The draft process for offense is going to be a lengthy one. Might take 2 years, but I think on defense, with some of the guys that they've got and the improvements that they made last year, that honestly they can be a top 7 or 8 defense with maybe a pickup or two, maybe a Khalil Mack, maybe a trade down, get a corner, safety, somebody who's an impact player, and they can be a fantastic defense. It's what they've been building over the years, and it seemed to have paid off. I mean, they played extremely well in a lot of games, including against Denver, where I distinctly remember a Paul Posluszny pick 6 kind of putting them in the game, even though they were winless. But I don't necessarily know that Bortles is going to ignite that fan base. He's not that kind of guy, even though he's from, right down the street or, down the state in Orlando. And quite frankly, they don't have anything that's going to help him. Their wide receiver situation is atrocious. Their line is nothing to write home about. They just lost MJD. And Chad Henne, he's a smart kid, but he didn't do a great job showing Blaine Gabbert the ropes either, and now he's got another job to do that. So I don't know how good of a steward he's going to be. I don't think that this is going to work. I hope it does for Blake Bortles. I think he's a great kid. I think he deserves to be picked up there, but there were a lot of right situations for him, and call me crazy, I don't think this is one of them. So we'll move down another couple to one more pick, but I'm not sold on Blake Bortles. I don't think that it's going to work out. Hope I'm wrong. So we'll move on to the next pick, the trade. A big one too, and it was Buffalo moving up into Cleveland's spot, giving up next year's first rounder, next year's 5th rounder in order to get Sammy Watkins. Okay. I like Sammy Watkins. I'm always skeptical when you see a first rounder be a wide receiver just because they have so many variables in terms of their success. You can't just be a really talented wide receiver and just be a success. You need somebody to throw you the ball. You need the person that's throwing you the ball to be upright. And generally, you actually need a running game or such a pass-heavy offense that you aren't just getting blanketed the entire time. We're getting into a very cornerback centric, and I think it's pretty evident by the fact that there were 9 defensive backs drafted yesterday out of 32 teams, and Richard Sherman got a huge deal, and the Patriots are getting some new rent-a corner every single year. We're getting into a cornerback-centric league. You need kind of a running game or constantly throwing full wide receiver sets out in order to really make any dividends in the passing game. So I'm always really hesitant when you see a guy go in that first round, or especially the top 10, that is a wide receiver. I like Sammy Watkins and Mike Evans, who went to the Bucs at 7. I have that personal bias going for me already, and I just hate this trade. I mean, is he really worth that? Is he really, when you're the Bills and your line's terrible and you've got 3 great linemen sitting for it, well, really, honestly, 3 extremely capable linemen, none of which are very likely to be busts, or all of which could be starters for you, and Martin, Matthews, and Luan. Was he really worth it? Was he worth giving up a first-round pick next year and a 5th-round pick just for 5 spots? No. I hate this trade. I hate the trade because you're a team that has other needs, and you're making a really flashy move in a cold weather site with howling winds and heavy snow and a second-year quarterback. I like Sammy Watkins. I hope he succeeds. I really do. I think that Buffalo just is making a mistake here. Other than in one regard, I will say this. The trade was stupid. They got a good player that might not be able to live up to his potential given the landscape of what they've done. It could, but I think that the wonderful thing about this is that it puts a ton of pressure on one E.J. Manuel, and that's pressure that he needs, because E.J. Manuel's going to have a make or break season. He's either going to build on the success that he had, some of the successes that he had last year, and have the tools in his toolbox to actually get the job done. You think about what they've got going right now. Right now, Stevie Johnson's still on the roster. You got Woods as well, Chandler at tight end, and Spiller at running back. That's pretty good. I mean, that's a good offense. That's enough tools in the tool bag to be able to put up some yards, especially when, the AFC isn't the more offensive of the leagues. It's less hard-nosed. I don't know. Just doesn't do it for me on the defensive end. I think that they'll have the opportunity to score points, but you need that quarterback. And this is really going to put a fire under the behind of E.J. Manuel, and that's a great move. Because you'll know this year, midway through next year, do we need a new quarterback? And if you do, you draft one, you go sign one, you've still got these pieces. They're young. I mean, C.J. Spiller, 5th year, 4th year, he's not been around that long. And that's the oldest guy, really. Stevie Johnson might not be on roster, but that's because they'll trade him for a lineman. I hate the trade. I like the pick and the fact that they're giving E.J. Manuel the tools to succeed and making him go do it. That's really smart, because you'll see what kind of guy he is, and if you're trying to revive Buffalo, especially offensively, you need a quarterback to do it, just like Jim Kelly used to do it when they made 4 consecutive Super Bowls. But quite frankly, I don't think E.J. Manuel's got it in him. I haven't seen the skills. Then again, I didn't really watch a lot of Buffalo games just because it hurts my eyes to watch Buffalo games generally, because they're bad, usually. Put that fire under his butt. Let's see how he does. It's going to be a make or break season for him. And I think that despite the trade being not so good, this is definitely a step in the right direction for the Bills in terms of building something. They're going to figure out what pieces they have. And while we're on the subject of wide receivers, just real quick, like Mike Evans, solid pickup. Wouldn't have done it myself, but really, who else do the Bucs have at wide receiver? big, tall kid. I think he helps you out. They can always get a quarterback in this round, maybe a Carr, maybe a Garofalo, maybe a Mettenberger, somebody to sit under McCown and hope that he's great. That's all you really need. So I like him. Odell Beckham Jr. I do not know what all the fuss is, but not crazy about him. Don't think he's going to really succeed. We'll just move on from there. The next real pick that I want to discuss is the Lions. What the hell are you thinking? It really, it's so dumb to look at the Lions. And you know, I like Ebron. Great tight end. You know, he's got all the measurables. He's going to split out wide, catch some passes. It fell into position for them. They needed an impact defensive back, and they had so many waiting for them. They could have gone with Denard even, who went to the Bengals all the way down the line. A Pryor, anyone, just a knockout defensive back, and they're swimming. They're good. They needed a first-round defensive back because they need a game changer in that area. Why? Tight end. It's so annoying. It's such a horrible lack of addressing of needs. And, you know, I hear people say, oh, you don't need to address needs if you think that there's players available later in the draft. The first round is where you get your impact guy. You need an impact guy in defensive backfield if you're the Lions. Why aren't you drafting him at 10? You can go get a tight end later. You can go get skilled players later. You don't need them as much. Hell, trade picks for an existing guy. Get a rental play. Who cares? Just why are you going out and freaking getting a tight end who's granted very talented when you have 3 on roster right now? 3 on roster. And you've got 2 great receivers and 2 good running backs. It doesn't make sense. I understand that you want a lot of tools. You can get another tool in the 2nd or 3rd round. You needed an impact player. You needed an impact player in your backfield. There were tons available. They could have gone with a number of players. A Pryor, a Clinton Dix. I mentioned Denard. Fuller was available. There were a lot of guys they could have gone out and gotten that would have been difference makers in the defensive backfield. They got none of them. It's a stupid pick. It'll work out just fine, but it'll hurt the Lions in the long run because they're going to put up so many points a year. But when they need a tackle late in the game, when they're 9-7 looking to win the division, or they're 7-7 looking to make the wild card against the Bears, and you got to tell somebody to go up and defend an Aaron Rodgers, or go up and guard or tackle a Jeffrey or a Marshall in Chicago, they have no one to do it. So it's going to set them back. I don't care. I mean, they might prove me wrong by doing some amazing scouting job in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th round. Get a guy who can go do that. But this was their opportunity to solve a major need and get a true first rounder. They needed a first rounder and they didn't get it. They got a guy who is just shiny. He's flash. He's the coat of wax on their car. And they're missing a wheel right now. It's dumb. It was a really stupid pick. Love Ebron. Really good player. Really stupid pick from the Lions. Just going to scroll down, if so pardon me for a second while I go through the draft board here. Look at the next noteworthy one, because I know that there were a lot that kind of skated over. I kind of expressed my anguish at Odell Beckham. Don't think he's too good. Could be proven wrong. The Rams had a great draft. Looking at them at 13 when they take Donald is the next one. They got Robinson at 2. What is there to talk about? They got 2 of the most bona fide guys, and they got 2 guys that, well, are the most talented. They could, and one's not going to, I mean, even if one busts, they're going to get a really good player. So, what the heck? They improved the middle of their line, and quite frankly, they were close to winning. They were close to being a good team anyways. I think if they really improved themselves, I would actually argue they probably had the best draft. I was going to save that for the end. Let's not, since we're on the topic. Best draft? First round? Rams, for sure. It's going to help them. And in fact, I think it probably gives them 2 or 3 more wins. Could be a division. Just saying. Chicago Bears, Pittsburgh Steelers, Dallas passed up on Manziel. Wow, way to go, Jerry. You bit your tongue. Nah, you swallowed your pride a little bit. Very smart. Nah, I like it. Martin, class act, captain, hard worker. What's there not to like? I like it. It's a good one. Needed him. C.J. Mosley, the Ravens, Calvin Pryor to the Jets. Not a lot really crazy. All right. It's time, isn't it? Yep. Oh. I got my wish. I got my wish. The entire draft. I prayed. I waited. I wanted Johnny Manziel to go to Cleveland. That's all I wanted. I'm not a Browns fan. I don't hate the Browns either. They're in my backyard. I get to watch them from time to time. But you want the Browns are so bad with quarterbacks. So bad. And a lot of it is coaching. A lot of it is situations. And the fact that players just don't have the talent and parts around them to win. Others just bad drafting. I mean, didn't have to tell you twice to say that Brandon Weeden was not going to be a success. You're drafting a 27-year-old. He'd have to step onto the field and be perfect in order to be the guy that you wanted, and they didn't get it. Guys in the past, Brady Quinn, Colt McCoy, Tim Couch. I mean, a lot of bad scouting. Johnny Manziel, different type of player, certainly needed in order to ignite the fan base, the very energetic Cleveland Brown dog pound. I think that's another major reason why they lack success, too, is the fact that, well, quite frankly, their fans are a little bit mean in the grand scheme of things. And I don't think that that's what young quarterbacks need, is somebody on their back saying, why aren't you leading me to a Super Bowl right now? So we will see how this goes. But I was just praying for this. And well, let's look at the other side, too. Johnny Manziel. He needs the right fit. He really does. He needs to be flashy, in the limelight, high profile, room to grow into this elaborate scene that can harvest the true power of Johnny football. The big stage, history, flash, the lights, a Miami, a Green Bay, a Dallas, Los Angeles. Los Angeles. New York. A place that can house his big ego. Cleveland? It's blue collar. It's working. It's nice. There's nothing wrong with Cleveland. It gets a hard time. Well, I know a lot of people that live in Cleveland. I've been there. It's good. It's a great place. Gets downtrodden. But in the words of one famous commercial, at least it's not Detroit. Johnny's a little big for Cleveland, or at least he thinks he is. This is going to be marvelous. Marvelous. The dumpster fire is going to burn brightly. This is not going to work. I'm sorry. The fans will start eating him alive as soon as he makes mistakes. And he's going to make mistakes. He's 20 years old and one of the biggest risk takers in many, many drafts. He's going to make mistakes. It was going to happen no matter where he went. He's going to make mistakes. But Cleveland fans will start eating him alive, and he'll just start jawing back. And they'll start eating each other, and it'll divulge. He might not be there in 2 years. In fact, I'll make that prediction. Johnny Manziel might not see out his contract. This is going to be one of the greatest things to look after in sports for the next few years. And I couldn't be happier because there's no middle ground. He's either going to be Cleveland's savior, LeBron 2.0, except in a Browns jersey, or, more likely, he's going to be the brightest comet of absolute atrocity burning across the sky. And knowing Cleveland, unfortunately, it's going to be the latter. I got my wish. Johnny Manziel in Cleveland. It's going to be hilarious. Wonderful drama. I guarantee you the issues start popping up as soon as he puts on that number 2 jersey in the back, starts doing this thing right here. It's going to be great, guys. I'm so happy. Cleveland number 2, just thank you. Thank you for picking Johnny Manziel. So much. Especially because your first pick, Gilbert, was kind of boring. Obviously, he could work out pretty well. He's right next to, Joe Hayden. Could be a pretty good pick. Boring. Johnny Manziel, duh. I'm just so happy about that. Moving down, I don't know if there were really anything too crazy at the end of the draft. Nothing really springs to mind. Oh yeah, the Patriots picked easily from Florida. Why are you picking a guy who's that hurt in the first round? Very confusing. I don't understand it. I think that's a really stupid move. I'm sorry. I hope it isn't. I mean, especially for guys who are injured. But whenever I'm talking like this, I mean, even with Johnny Manziel, it's like, I hope these guys do well. Duh. But, we can't all be LTs and Adrian Petersons and, Brady's and Breezes and Mannings and Woodsons and things like that. There's going to be failures. I hope Easley doesn't fail. I just think it's really dumb of the Patriots to be picking somebody with that many injury problems. I thought that was really dumb. Bradley Roby going to the Broncos, huge move because it's no pressure in that. I mean, with a guy with his character, I thought that he really needed a play. I was guaranteed to essentially write him off as a horrible pick to pretty much every team in the league. And this is a team that's going to work. He's either going to never really see field time because he wasn't that good, or, this is what I think, he's going to be a number 1, number 2 corner for a long time because he just doesn't have the pressure. They're not supposed to be good. He's going to be playing a lot, and John Fox is good at defense. He'll coach him well. It'll be a good, I think he'll be a very good pickup. Extremely gifted. And I thought that the Bengals had to be licking their lips too. I mean, they got Darqueze Dennard, who's one of the most aggressive and fundamentally sound corners really to come out in a while. There were a lot of really great safeties and defensive backs and corners in this draft, and I thought Dennard was one of the best 3, and they got him at 24, so that was very good. And as a Bengals fan actually pointed out to me, jury's not even out on Kirkpatrick yet, so people are labeling him a bust, not done. The last big one was Bridgewater to Minnesota. It's so low risk. They traded into the first round so they could get their guy. What are you going to do? I think that's really overblown about all his workouts and things like that. It's just nonsense. The kid's really immensely smart, and he's got an immense work ethic. I think that he's a very good pick. I don't necessarily see him being the savior to any franchises. I don't necessarily think that he has the arm strength to do that. And I really don't know. We'll see how good Zimmer is at developing quarterback, but a defensive coordinator, I would have thought they would have stocked up on defense, but what do I know? But it's very low risk. It's a good pick. He could be great. He could be a number 1 guy, and why not get him at the end of the first round? They obviously wanted him, and they wanted to make sure nobody got him. And if their scouting's right, they got themselves a top 5 talent, and if it's wrong, it's the end of the first round. What are you going to do? Not high risk. Love the pick. Pass or fail. Doesn't really matter. They got to move in the right direction. I think that when you're getting a guy who could have gone in the top 5 maybe a few weeks ago at number 32, that's a pretty bold move, and one that steps you in the right direction one way or another. Best and worst drafts. I already said the best was the Rams thus far in the first round. I mean, obviously, this is just all first round. I can't tell you that, oh, the Rams have had the best draft. There's 6 more rounds, but as far as first rounds go, the Rams had the best. Got 2 of the most talented guys. I said that earlier. I actually love the Browns draft because they actually stockpiled some picks for future years, which I thought was pretty cool, and they got a pretty serviceable guy and a sink or swim guy who at very least is going to make them a lot of money. I mean, regardless of, I think the dumpster fire is going to burn brightly and just gloriously for a few years. But Johnny Manziel is going to make them a ton of money and really give them a lot of hype, which is something that Cleveland doesn't get a lot of. I like what the Steelers and Bears did with their defensive picks of Shazier and Fuller, respectively, but not the best drafts, honestly. Not a lot of movers and shakers, really. Even some of the worst picks, when you get down into some of the later rounds, the kid from Jamie Ward from Northern Illinois was kind of a puzzler in terms of him going to San Francisco, but they proved everyone wrong with Eric Reed. He was a Pro Bowler in his first round when they traded up for him. And then the other kind of confusing one is Marcus Smith to the Eagles. But really, those are pretty low risk, and obviously if they're kind of stretching for these guys, they must like them. Must have done their homework. So I don't really think anybody had a bad draft. If I had to pick a worse draft, I'm inclined to go with Buffalo. I like Watkins. I like their pick. I just think with a team with that much need on offensive line, you're doing yourself a disservice to give away a first-round pick just to get a different need that is far less of a need. I mean, they could have traded back and gotten some really great wide receivers at the end of the first round if that's what they wanted to do, and stockpiled some picks so they could help out. But I'm not crazy about it. So that'll wrap it up for now. I'll try to be back at the weekend, probably talk a little bit about the playoffs of various things, maybe do a little bit of draft wrap-up. Again, please tell me what I'm doing wrong, what I'm doing right, if you like me, if you don't. Give me some speculation topics. Heck, I don't care. I just want your help. I mean, honestly, I'm new to this whole YouTube thing. I plan on getting better, and I plan on looking all the way back at these videos and thinking, oh my God, I was like that at one point. But feel free to, give the nice little subscribe button a click. I don't know. More comments, really. Ask me questions, post things, prove me wrong, save these to the annals of time so that you can say, oh, the dumpster fire didn't burn, or Blake Bortles was a perpetual Pro Bowler, Super Bowl champion, something like that. You were wrong. I like that. I like that a lot. So, until next time, guys, Kevin Preston, you've been watching and, I guess, listening to the Speculate and React Sports Blog. So, bye-bye until next time. Stay classy.